Sechta Bava basra daf kuf lamid ches amad aleph. We're starting from 4 lines from the bottom of kuf lamid zayin amid beis. Sagt you Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Shmuel. Akaisim nechasav la'acher. One who writes his nechasim to another person. The Amalan the Makabel, the one that was supposed to receive the matana, says, I don't want the matana. Even if he's standing and screaming that he doesn't want the matana, he's kind of hit. Rabbi Yechon like kana. Rabbi Yechon says he's not going to be kind of the matana. Rabbi Mamel had said the late pligi that Rabbi Yehuda, I'm sorry, that Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel and Rabbi Yechon not arguing. They're not arguing at all. Kan Rabbi Yechon, who says that Makabel is not kind in the chasm when he says he doesn't want it, where he's screaming right from the beginning, right when he gave him the shtar, he started to yell. He doesn't want the matana, and therefore he's not kind of it, because here it's a union from a chayv. You're not mizaka a person against his will. He was megala's died his with his mind that he doesn't want it, and like it says in the pasuk, person who hates matanis lives long, so it's a chayv for him. He doesn't want it. Kan here by Shmuel, who says that he is kadin chasm that he at the beginning when they gave him the star he was quiet. Well, I'm saying tzavach only at the end after he received the star, then he started to scream. He doesn't want the matana. Therefore, he's kadin chasm since he received the star quietly. Surely, when he received the star, he was willing to merit into the matana. But once he already was zeichen in the matana through the shtar, he cannot take it out of his ishus till he gives it to as a matana to others, or he makes it a hefker. Rav Nachman Rabbi Yitzchak gesagt, the case of where let's start the case. If the Noisen gave the shtar matana to another person, he gave the shtar in front of the Makabel. He gave it to another person that person should be zeichet for him. And while this transaction was happening, when the Noisen gave another person that person should be zeichet for the Makabel who's standing there, and he kept quiet, and only at the end he started to scream that he doesn't want the matana. That's where we come to the machlekes of Rabbi Shimon Gamil and the Rabbana. The Tanya that we learned in the Braysa, one who writes, well, his nechasim to another person as a shtar matana, and between the nechasim there was avodim, slaves. And the Makabel said, I don't want these avodim. I don't want to have to sustain them. I don't want to have to feed them. Even though there's a mandama that says the Adam could say to his Eved, you work for me and I won't give you anything. Nevertheless, a person doesn't want to do such things. If the second master, the Makabel Matana, was a kayin, then the avadim get the truma because they're the avadim of the kayin. And it says it's considered as kinyan kaspa, and therefore kinyan kaspa gets to eat from the truma, and however it's kinyan kaspa, he gets to eat from the truma. Since the Makabel said I don't want the matana, automatically, right when he said he doesn't want it, so it's like the giver never had given it, and it goes back to him and to his Yarshim. And over here, Rabbi Shimon Gamil argues on the Hira of Reish Lakish and Masechta Krisus that we brought previously. We said before that he cannot take it out of the shus till he gives it as a matana to others, or that it's that we learned from the Ar before that if the Noisen already gave it away, and the Makabel doesn't want it, then it's hefker. Anybody who wants can come and be zeicha in it. Rabbi Shimon Gamil argues with that Mandeoma, and Rabbi Shimon Gamil holds a person, if he wanted to give it to somebody and that person refused it, so it's like he never gave it. It's not like it went out of his issues. It's not hefker. Sagt jemand, so I'm shipping a bill holds, given Shama Allah Yavshbam Krasach Yeshim. Therefore he goes back to the what Nesna Matana, and if the Nesna Matana died, he goes to his Yarshim. Meaning the Chachamim who hold that the Mekabel is Zeiche by Avodim, even when he's standing and screaming that he doesn't want it. So the Gemara is asking, I'm sorry, the Tana Kama, the Tana Kama, does the Tana Kama hold that he's Zeichen Avodim even though he's standing and screaming? He says he doesn't want it. Why should he be kained if he's even with Seivach? Rabbi said, Rabbi answered that with Seivach may karei. There it's talking about when we say that he doesn't. Everybody holds that he doesn't. He's not. The Mekabel is not Zeichen the Eved. When right from the beginning he was screaming, he doesn't want it. That it's a chay for him. Everybody agrees that he's not going to have it because he shows it's mamash a chayv. He doesn't want to have to feed it. He's right from the beginning. He's showing it's a chayv, and even mitzad the concept of saying matanas yiche, it's a chayv. That a person hates matanas, that in itself is a good enough reason that he could deny it and make it into a chayv, and he shouldn't. And if he says he doesn't want it, it shouldn't be considered as a schus that he's kind of against his will. And in a case of Shaskel Sabach, if the Makabel was quiet, and then we received the Mishnah Matana, he was quiet. And then later he started to scream. Only after we received the Mishnah Matana, everybody agrees he was Kainain already. He was Zeich in the star. Through his quiet, this that he kept quiet and he received the star, he showed that he was happy with the Matana. He cannot back out after he was already Zeicha. When was the Machlekes said, that the shtar matana was given to another person, that person should be zeichet for the mekabel, but it was done in front of the mekabel, and he told him, he tells this, Reuben tells Shimon, in front of Levi, Reuben tells Shimon, be zeichet, the shtar matana for Levi, and Levi was there, the shas, and he kept quiet. And at the end he started to scream, the Tanakh Sabach with the shasi, Kaninu. Tanakama holds from this that the Mekabel was quiet from the beginning. That shows he was he agreed to accept the Avadim as a kinyan, as to be kainet, and therefore he was kainet. And this that he was screaming afterwards, who the kahadabe is, he only wants to back out of the transaction, out of the matana. Reb Shimon Gamil says, this that he was screaming at the end, that he doesn't want the Avadim. He was Megala that to begin with he never wanted it. Not that he backed out. Not that at the beginning he wanted it and then he backed out. He never wanted it. Why didn't he scream till now? And he thought to himself, if I didn't yet get it, why should I have to scream? Why should I scream if I didn't receive it? Give 200 zuz to Reuben. V'shleish meyez zuz lepleni. And 300 zuz to Shimon. Rabba meyez zuz lepleni. And 400 zuz to Levi. So he get. We don't say that whoever was first in the shtar is zeicha. Meaning he meant to give it to them all at once, but he had to mention each person's name. He couldn't do two things simultaneously. He wanted to give the 900 zuz, but he wanted to split it up between the three. For him to say it, he had to say it in a way that it's broken up. That the Reuben gets 200, the Shimon gets 300, and Levi gets 400. Says the Gemara that over here, let's say that it wasn't 900. So we give according to, let's say, if he only left 450, so then we don't say, oh, he meant to give the first one first. No, we give each one half of what they were supposed to get. He said to the first one, for the first one, he's going to give 200. He gives 100. For the second one, 300, he gives 150. And for the And for the third one who said 400, he gives 200. And therefore, if on the days Nashtachiv came, so the Balachiv is given Mikulam. He collects from everyone equally. Because since it was given as one, as one matana, so if the chayv was, let's say, 9 zuzim, so the Balachiv takes from the first one 2, the second one he takes 3, and from the third one he takes 4. According to the way he gave it, that's how they have to pay the Balachiv. But if the Shechina said, zuz leploini, first give 200 zuz to this one, and after him leploini, give it to Shimon, and after the Shimon leploini, give it to Levi. Whoever we say, whoever got whoever was kaidem to be zeichen the star is zeichen the matana first. The Lashon Ba'acharov comes to prove that he wanted the matana should be given in a certain order, not the vasachas. Therefore, the second one takes whatever's left by the first one, and the third one takes whatever's left by the second one. The dugma of the Shechina is when, okay, let's go. Lafikach Yotza Lov Shtachayv, Goiva Min HaMakabala Achrein. He first is Goiva from the Makabala Achrein, because if he comes to the Makabala Rishon, the Makabala Rishon says, "Why are you coming to me for the money? I left money by the second person." And if he comes to the second person who got money, he says, the second person says, "Why are you coming to me? The third person has money. Go to the last one." Because each one says, "I knew that there's a Balchayv, and I left money for you to collect from." So the first one says, "I got this matana, but I left you money for you to be able to collect your chayv from the second one who he gave money to." And the second person, who, when the Balchayv comes to him and he says, "Give me my money for the chayv," he says, "Listen, I took this money knowingly that there's money for you by the third person." And if Lefanov didn't have money, then he goes to the, I'm sorry, if the Achron doesn't have money, then he goes to the one before him. If the one doesn't have, then he goes back to the first one who received the money first. He says, "Give 200 zuz to Pliny, my son, who's b'chei kareli, as befitting to him." Neitlan, he takes it. So now we're looking at it as there's two parts. There's the b'chei part, the second part, and then there's the kareli, the pashta part. So v'neitel as b'chei, he could take his part that he's deserving, and in addition his b'chei. Im ama, but if he said, "Give these 200 zuz l'plain b'bnei b'chei," he says, I'm giving you this 200 zuz for this portion of the b'cher. Then he can decide which one to take, the pashta chelik or the double chelik. And he sees, if he wants, he could take the Masayim zuz as the chelik haposhit, if the chelik of the b'cher was less than that. But if he wants, he can take the portion of the b'cher, because if the b'cher part was worth more than 200 zuz, he can grab that as a b'cher, as the second part. Another case by one who gives a matana to his wife, he says, "Give 200 zuz to my wife, karoila, as befitting to her. And she takes it. When they tell us, and she's not meichlan the ksuba, she takes an addition as ksubasa. Imam, but what's if he said, give these 200 zuz b'ksubasa for the ksuba, so she doesn't take both. Nevertheless, yad ala yena, she has the right to choose which one she wants. That's if she wants, she takes the mitzvah zuz, and she doesn't take it as the ksuba, or that's I tell ksubasa. But if she wants, she can take it as the ksuba. The Baal doesn't have a schus to deduct from the ksuba of the wife. A third case by Nesel Balchayv, it's a little different, but it's more or less the same. He said, give 200 zuz to that person might balchayv. Karoilai as befitting to him. Neitlan, he takes that as a matana. When Noitel as chayv, and he takes the money of his chayv. Vim aman, if he said, give me 200 zuz, he says, give me two masayim zuz plain balchayvi bechayvi as a chayv. Says the Gemara, Neitlan, he takes the masayim zuz b'pirayin hachayv as a pirayin of the chayv, but he don't say yad al yena. L'mashal, if the chayv was less than the 200 zuz, right? If the chayv was less than that, so since the one that's taking, he cannot take it as a chayv, because if he's taking it as a chayv, he's taking more than what the chayv is worth, and he's taking it as a chayv, he's taking ribis, then he cannot take it as a chayv. But because he says, I'm giving you, as befitting to you, Neitlan, the Balchayv takes the Masayim Zuz, but Neitlan, and in addition, he takes the chayv. Who says that there's two parts here, that the Karayim means that he's getting a matana, and then in addition he gets his chayv. When he said Karayim, maybe perhaps he meant the chayv itself. Rav Nachman said, Rav Huna told me, how many, like who was this Baraisa learned like Rabbi Akiva? It was learned like Rabbi Akiva, the Doyak Lishna Yisera, who was medactic. When somebody uses extra words in his lashon, where do we see that? The Tanam we learned in the earlier Mishnah on Samach Dalet Amud Aleph, when somebody sells a house stam without detailing what's included in the sale, we say he didn't sell him the pit or the cistern that was in the house. Why? Because the pit and the cistern are tashmish on its own. It's a usage that's on its own. And it has nothing to do with the house. They're not included in the house. He said, even though he told him, I'm selling you the depth of the house and all the way the height. What does he mean, the depth and the height? So he says, when he says the height, he's referring to the air rights on top of the house and the roof that's on top of the house. And when he's talking about the depth of the house, he's referring to the earth under the house. But he's not including like a bird, a pit, and a cistern. These are things made to draw water from, and their usage has nothing to do with the house. It's a tashrim ifnei atzmon. So they're not included in the house. So what do we learn? V'tzarich. So when he sold him the house, he didn't sell him the cistern with the bird. And since the cistern has the cistern and the bird, the balabayas left for himself, the one that sold the house, left for himself the cistern and the bird, and now he needs a path to get to it because he sold the house to somebody else. So the meicha has to likach loy derech. He has to buy now a path to be able to get to the bird and the cistern. Those are the words of Rabbi Akiva, because like we learned before, that when somebody sells, he sells be'ayin yafa, he sells with a good eye. So since he sold also the path. So now that he needs the path, because he left over the bird and the cistern for himself, he has to buy back the path from the person who bought off the house. Chum say no, he doesn't have to buy the path, because one who sells be'ayin ra. And certainly he left the path for himself. But Rabbi Akiva will agree, if the Meicha said to Lokeach, that this house this house is sold to you. He says, except the Ber Vedus. That's superfluous. It's extra words, because when he's selling the house, obviously it's not including the Ber Vedus. So in such a case, since he said Chutz Me'elu, so why did he say these extra words? To tell us that he won't have to buy the pathway going to the Ber Vedus, even though normally when he sells Ba'ayin Yafa, and he would have to buy it. But if he added the words Chutz Me'elu, which are extra words, because when somebody sells a house, it's already excluding the Ber Vedus. He didn't have to say Chutz Me'elu. By saying Chutz Me'elu, he meant to add that he's getting the pathway with it. So we see, even the late tzaddik, since the Meicha didn't have to say chutz me'elu, vika aman, he said it, litfuya milsakasi, obviously he's coming to add for his chusim, hachanami, so to here, even the late tzaddik, since the Noisan didn't have to say karoyula, it's obviously it's for the ksuba, it's obviously for the chayv, so why did he add the words karoyula? The and he still says karoyula, litfuya milsakasi. Obviously, he's coming to add, besides the chayv, he's giving him a matana. Or besides the ksuba, he's giving her a matana. That had said, Mana yeshli, ate so plenty, I have $100 by that person, that ate write his words, even though they don't recognize, they don't know whether he taked this Rumin Oshim in money. The person, right before he passes away, he says, you should know there's people that owe me money. Lefikach. Therefore, since the Chacham gave the shus to the Edom to write whatever he heard, even though they don't know, they don't know if it's emes or not. So Kishur gave when he comes to collect the chayv from that person, so then even if the person who has the shtar that the Shchib Merah said that person owes money, the Edom didn't know about it, so that person and they that sign say it themselves they don't know if it's true. So the person who wants to collect from him will have to be proved that person owes the money. We don't write, even though the Shchim says that person owes him money, $100. We're not going to write up that shtar. Elohim came akidin only if we know the loiva, meaning we know that the loiva taka owes money to the shibara. Lefikach yeshu geva. Therefore, when he collects the chayv, if he produced the shtar from the shibara, according to the chachamim, who say we would never allow a shtar to be written of a shibara that somebody owes the shibara money unless it was verified. Unless we verified that the loiva owed him the money. The shtar wouldn't have been written. Being that the shtar was written, he could collect on that shtar, and he doesn't have to bring a proof that the loiva owes him money. Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman said, Rav Huna told me, Tana, we learned in the Braisa, this machlik is the way we said it. It was learned in the reverse. Rav Meir is the one that says, Ein koisvin, that we don't write. If a Shchimera says that Pliny owes him money, the Leva owes the Shchimera money, so we don't allow the Yarsh, we don't write it for the Yarsh, we don't write it for the Shchimera a star if we don't know who the Leva is, if whether Leva really owes the money. Chachamim say we do write it, even though we don't know if the Leva actually owes the money to the Shchimera. Even Rav Meir didn't say that we don't write this star if we don't know who the leva is, only because of a bezin that might make a mistake and won't know that there's a din that Edom write the words of a shchimara, even though they don't know really who the leva is and if the leva actually borrowed money. And if such a bezin sees such a star, they'll tell the yashim, they'll tell the leva, pay the yashim because they have such a star. And really, the Edom that signed on such a star never even really knew if the labor borrowed the money. Amar Abdimi min Adar said, the halacha is that we're not concerned for a bezin toim. And therefore, the Edom could write the words of the Shchimera even though they don't know if it's true. In fact, on this halacha that Abdimi had said, why is it any different than the din of Rava? The Rava ain't chiltzin. Elohim came akirin. Bezdin is not allowed to set up a chalitza only if they know who the Yavam and the Yavama is. And they know that this Yavama who's doing a chalitza is doing it to the Yavam because it could be to a stranger. And then she'll get from Bezdin a proof that she had chalitza and she'll be able to marry to others in the shuk. And really, Bezdin never even verified whether the Yavam was the Yavam. Sagt die Yemara, Also, v'chein ein memanin elin kemakinin. The heating of miyun is the Gemara Yedushin says the Chacham wa Misakin that if a ketana what happened was that as a little child, the father had passed away, and the mother and the brother could give her over to another man, and for kiddushin while she's a ketana, till she reveals that she doesn't want. As a ketana, if she doesn't want, that's called miyun, and that's how she's mevat the kiddushin mafreya. But she has to go and say to her husband she doesn't want to continue with this marriage. But this miyun has to be done. Meaning Bezdin is not allowed to accept miyun only if they actually know the ketana and the ketana's husband, and when the ketana is doing a miyun, they know that it's being done with the two right people, lefikach, and therefore since Bezdin cannot arrange a chalitza or a miyun without knowing both sides, Kaisvin, therefore Edom are allowed to write that they saw the chalitza or miyun in Bezdin. They get chalitza and they get miyun, even though the Edom themselves don't know who, if it was the right people, if by the chalitza was the Yavam and the Yavam were the correct pair, or by the miyun, the ketana and her husband were the right people where she said she doesn't want the marriage, even though the Edom didn't know it, but they saw what happened in Bezdin, not knowing if it's the right pair. That's good enough, because Bezdin would never allow a chalitza to take place or a miyun to take place without verifying that these are the right people. Meaning, by chalitza it's the yavam with it's the right yavam with the right yavama, or by miyun it's the right ketana with the right man. So, Zakti Yimara, my time. What's the time for the Hayra of Rava that we're not chiltzim or miyun? And Bezdin doesn't do it unless they recognize La Mishum the Cheshim the Bezdin Tayim, because they were afraid that maybe another Bezdin will think that the first Bezdin would have never been Misad the Chalitza or Miyun without recognizing both sides, and will be Mata, a woman, to marry without any additional Badika. That's why they instituted that the first Bezdin that comes in contact with it, make sure you know it, because the next Bezdin will not know that the first Bezdin was allowed to do it without checking. So the second Bezdin, who's now going to allow it to marry, won't check, because they'll rely on the first Bezdin. That's why we need the first Bezdin to do a real chalitza, checked out chalitza, meaning knowing that it's the right Yavam and Yavama, or the right Ketana with the Baila when the miyun was done, in order that when the second Bezdin marries this girl off, they don't have to worry that the first Bezdin, meaning when they married him off, that they might rely on the first Bezdin. And if the first Bezdin didn't really check it out, we might allow this girl to marry off to other people where it was forbidden because it was never checked out. That's why we said that the first Bezdin Chatchila should have to check it out. So the second Bezdin who marries her off won't, Chas v'shalom, allow her to marry when she was forbidden to get married. So that is effect. Even the same thing by Shtar, which was written from the words of Shechimera, Bezdin, the Aiden will sign it, and even though they don't know who the real loiva is, and they'll give it to the Yerush to collect the chayv, It's not a kasha. Bezdin basa beidina loidaike. You're right. If the first Bezdin is not going to check it out, and then comes who the Yav and Yavama are by the Chalitza, or the same thing by Miyun, so the second Bezdin will rely, the first Bezdin did their job, and therefore they'll automatically marry off. That's why we said the first Bezdin that does the Chalitza must check out who the parties are and know who they are. But Bezdin basa eidem daiki. But a Bezdin that gets a star, and that from the Yarshim to collect from a Balchay, Bezdin won't rely on the Eidim. Bezdin will certainly check out the Eidim So we don't have to worry about Bezdin. If the Eidim, the Bezdin will rely on the Eidim of the star.